Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Unlocked, the podcast that inspires you to create a successful, happy, and positive life. Hosted by me, Ricky Locke, speaker, trainer, and magician, who is on a mission to understand how can we truly live the best version of ourselves. But firstly, I'm going to start off with an apology. The ball has been dropped. This is the first podcast in about 3 weeks, and I haven't released anything, so I do apologise for listeners out there. I dropped the ball massively, but good news. I've now caught it and I'm ready to carry on, which brings me to the theme of this episode, which is anybody feeling a little bit wobbly? So a little bit of context really to explain this. I have been very busy over the last couple of weeks, which is not an excuse. It's a terrible, actually, excuse, isn't it? for not releasing a podcast episode. But I've been busy doing some keynotes, I've been speaking at some events, and I've been working on a little secret project called How to Create a Magical Customer Experience, which some podcast listeners will know about. It's an amazing course where you can learn how to create a magical customer experience in your business within 90 minutes. And I recently did a soft launch at one of my keynotes, and don't worry, I will be releasing it to the public very shortly. So please watch this space and you will find out very soon. But does anybody feel a little bit wobbly at the minute? So to add a little bit of context, I was recently in a thinking session with my great friend and mentor, Bev Holden, and the topic of conversation came up about the clear thinking cards. And one of my favourite cards that they have is a card that says reliable. It has a Lego Star Wars Stormtrooper inside an egg, which is quite ironic anyway, because I find that Stormtroopers weren't very reliable in the Star Wars films. But on the opposite side of these great cards, you actually have the opposite connotation. So the opposite connotation to reliable was wobbly. And I came up with a metaphor recently to describe how busy I feel at the minute and how I'm feeling a little bit wobbly at the minute. And the metaphor I came up with was this idea. So picture this. Imagine being on a bouncy castle in your socks. Now, if you're on a bouncy castle in your socks, it's a little bit slippery, it's a little bit wobbly, but it's also quite fun as well. And that's exactly the feeling that I am feeling right now in life. So over the last 12 months, I've transitioned into an online space. I've been recording podcasts. I've been joining Zoom meetings. I've been joining networking meetings. I've been part of an online culture. And now as everything's starting to open up and I'm seeing people having wonderful times outside in the lovely sun, at restaurants, in beer gardens, I'm feeling a little bit wobbly and a little bit nervous. Now, I'm really pleased and I'm truly grateful that actually my business is now starting to pick up and I might be starting to perform at outdoor events and weddings, woohoo, which is fantastic. But I'm a little bit wobbly. I'm a bit nervous. It's a little bit wobbly. It's quite exciting. I'm looking forward to getting back out there. But also, I've transitioned into this 12 months of an online world of sitting in my office. And I think that I've adapted to it. And probably adapted it too well that I'm a little bit nervous. And there might be a few of you out there might be really excited that we're kind of opening back up into the world. But I actually, as an extrovert, which is ironic for me, because I thrive off other people's energy, I'm a little bit nervous about going back into the world. Of course, there's going to be restrictions, and I know that it might not be the same way as I used to be able to do my job, and I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I've transitioned really well. And I know I've mentioned this in previous podcast episodes about the Kubler-Ross curve, and I'll try and get a little picture of this in the show notes to explain this, but the Kubler-Ross curve is a great metaphor and a great model to understand the change curve. So when something happens, like example, the pandemic, you have lots of different feelings that you go through. You have shock, denial, frustration, depression, and then it kind of bounces back up to trying new stuff, making decisions and acceptance, and then obviously integrating into the new world. And I think that when I went back 12 months ago, that big shock of, right, okay, I'm not going to be able to perform in the real world. What am I going to do? And starting to disbelieve it all and getting really frustrated of, why can't I do my job? Why am I getting inquiries anymore? And then you kind of go into that kind of low mood and lack of energy, not really wanting to do much. And then you start doing stuff. And for me, I started to go into the online space and I started to do more keynotes and more speaking events and then integrated really well. And exactly that same feeling is happening now. I'm going through that change curve once again. I've now got that shock of, oh, hang on a minute. Whoa, I've got to go back out into the real world. Oh, what? That's okay. So what do I do? I've got to wear my suit. I can no longer wear pajamas or shorts. I've got to now start to be a human being again. And there's that frustration thinking, how can I do this? I've been online. I've been not needing to travel to any events, right? I went to an event recently, which was absolutely fantastic. It was a speaker course, a full day course, which was brilliant. And it was great to be in a room with other people. But it's also a bit nervous because I've forgotten what it's like to be a human being. I've forgotten what it's like to be in a room with real people. And so you kind of go through that change curve. And I think that I'd integrated so well and accepted this world that I'm now feeling a little bit wobbly. But the reason I describe it as wobbly is because I love that feeling of like being on a bouncy castle. Yeah, it's slippery in your socks. And it's a little bit crazy and a bit wobbly, but it's actually exciting as well. We love bouncy castles. It's fun. You can have a great time. So not too much of negativity. I'm just feeling a little bit wobbly because I'm really nervous. I've got to go back out there and perform magic again. Can't even remember how to perform magic. No, of course I can, of course. So any of my listeners who are my clients, I can still perform magic. But it's that feeling, isn't it, of thinking, well, hang on a minute. I've adapted to this world. Now I need to do something different. I need to go back to the old way. So that's kind of my feeling here. This is kind of just a bit of a brain dump or a thought vomit. Let's come up with that word. And this is just me explaining a little bit about wobbly. I'd love to know, though, if any of my listeners out there as well, if you're listening to this podcast, are you feeling a little bit wobbly at the minute? Are you a bit nervous about going back into the real world as things start to open up? Or are you really excited? Or are you a little bit scared? Tell me. But the good things is, look, if you are feeling the same as me, this is good. This is all normal behavior. It is okay to feel like this. Like I've mentioned previous episodes with Paul McGee, this is like hippo time. A bit of wallowing, a little bit of probably denial, a little bit of disbelief. But this is all part of that natural Kubler-Ross model, which is going through the change curve. When anybody deals with great change, you will go through lots of different feelings like denial, frustration, shock, but eventually then you will accept it and then you'll start to integrate by making great decisions. So this is natural. So for anyone out there, if you are feeling wobbly like me, it's okay to feel like this. We've just been through, a 12-month transition that nobody could have ever experienced. So going back into the real world, it might feel a little bit different, but that's okay. But look, stay tuned. This is just a little bit of me doing a little bit of a brain dump. Stay tuned. I'm going to keep you filled in of what the events look like as I go back out into the real world. But don't worry, podcast listeners, you'll still get your episodes out. And we've got some great episodes. We've got part 2 of Steve McDermott's coming out soon. And also I've got Jeff Way, who has a fantastic episode with me about being stuck. So that's coming soon. And also, thank you so much for following the podcast and supporting it. We've just hit 44 in the Netherlands. So in the top 50 of the Netherlands for this podcast. So thank you so much for your support. I really, truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you for your reviews. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for your kind support. Don't forget, if you haven't, though, head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Leave us a 5-star rating. That would be absolutely amazing. And get in touch on the social media. At Ricky Lock Magic or LinkedIn. I'm Ricky Lock. Contact me. Let me know. Are you feeling a little bit wobbly at the minute? Are you a bit nervous? Are you a bit scared? And tell me what you're doing to cope with that change. But anyway, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And I will see you next week for another episode of Unlocked. Goodbye.